Afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Hawaii Hemp Task Force meeting, and thank you for joining. So I'm Jun Tulio from Department of Agriculture, and I'll be your meeting facilitator today. Prior to call to order, I would like to call on Stephen to inform the public how to participate in this hybrid meeting, which can be accessed in person, by video conference, or telephone.
Good afternoon, everyone. For internet, telephone, and in-person, when testifying, you will be asked to identify yourself and the organization, if any, that you represent. Each testifier will be limited to 2 minutes of testimony per agenda item. If internet and phone connection is lost, the meeting may reconvene when either audio-visual communication or audio-only communication is established within 30 minutes. The public may access the reconvene meeting by clicking the link in the agenda or calling one of the numbers provided also below the agenda or below that link in the agenda. If it's not possible to reconvene the meeting within 30 minutes after an interruption, then check the agency's website for information as to whether the meeting will be continued to an alternative date and time, or the meeting may be terminated. So for those of you joining online, as an attendee, your microphone will be automatically muted during the meeting unless you are providing testimony. For each agenda item you wish to testify on, please click the raise hand button found on the Zoom screen. The task force staff will individually enable each testifier to unmute their microphone. When recognized by the task force meeting facilitator, please unmute your microphone before speaking and mute your microphone after you finish speaking in order to prevent audio feedback. For anyone who is joining via, via phone, when the task force meeting facilitator asks for public testimony, you may indicate you want to testify by entering star and then 9 on your phone's keypad. After entering star and then 9, a voice prompt will let you know that the host of the meeting has been notified. When recognized by the meeting facilitator, you may unmute yourself by pressing star and then 6 on the phone. A voice prompt will let you know that you are unmuted. And then once you're finished speaking, please enter star and then 6 again to mute yourself. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I would like to call the meeting to order, the meeting of the task force to order at 12:09 on Wednesday, August 14, 2024. So moving on, I will take the attendance first. So I'm requesting all task force members to please acknowledge and say present when your name is called. So the task force members include Gail Byrne Baber of Hawaii Royal Hemp.
Present.
Robert Benz of Hawaii Sustainable Farm.
Present.
Tai Chang of Hemp Hawaii. Jared Dalgamuni of Hawaiian Choice.
Present.
Okay. Janine Holstein of Maui Majesty. Gloria Ilagan of Mauna Kea Trading.
Sorry, I'm here. Janine Holstein is here. Just couldn't find the mute button.
Gloria Ilagan. Kelly King of Pacific Biodiesel.
Here.
Okay. Kyle Young of Hawaii Gold Farms.
Here.
Ching Lee of University of Hawaii at Manoa.
Present.
Kele Matsuda of Polele. Judaya McRoberts of Kauai Hemp Company.
Present.
Liliana Napoleon of Napoleon Gentry.
Yes, present.
Brittany Neal of Hawaiian Hempstead. and Grant Oberthorn of Agripelago, Greg Smith of Earth Matters.
Here.
Thanks.
Here.
Joseph Smith. Thank you. Joseph Smith of Hemp Home Hawaii,
Yeah, we're here.
Rusty Tap of Kamaina Ventures,
Here.
and Scotty Wong of Ohana Ventures.
Present.
Thank you. Is there anyone from the public who is attending?
There are 5 members from the public, but I don't think you need to call.
Okay, thank you, Jason. So quorum is established for this meeting.
I think that there might be a member that is one of those phone numbers. That happened to me last time. I had to call in because I had Zoom problems. So you could see if maybe there's a task force member that's one of those numbers.
This one. Yeah, so you, if you're on the phone as a member of the public, if you could do star and then 9 to raise your hand, let me know that you are actually one of the members and want to be brought up as one of these panelists, or if you just wish to stay a member of the kind of the public, yeah, you don't need to raise your hand. Be star and then 9.
Thank you. Before we proceed, I would like to remind that both public testimony and task force member discussion be limited to 2 minutes on each agenda item and must address items on the agenda only. So the second item in the agenda is the presentation by DOH, hemp processors permit and crude extract. So I would like to turn it over to Liam of Department of Health.
Thank you, June. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Liam Gimmon. I'm the supervisor for the dispensary section for the Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation. Our office was tasked with regulating cannabinoid hemp back in June 2023. So it's a work in progress. I have a team of 5 surveyors, which do the inspections for the medical cannabis processing sites, dispensaries, follow-up and complaints. And we also have undertaken the regulation of hemp, cannabinoid hemp. I just want to give you a quick run through of the history, the timeline of Department of Health's cannabinoid hemp actions and what's been going on. So of course, we all know the Farm Bill, the 2018 Farm Bill was signed on December 20th of 2018. So it is a relatively new, almost brand new issue. It's something that has changed the outlook of the hemp and cannabinoid hemp. So it is new and we're all scrambling to address it in the correct way. In August of 2020, the Governor EA enacted Act 14, which created Chapter 328G, which allowed the rules and regulations for the cannabinoid hemp and the rulemaking authority. In 2021, in August, the Department of Health released Chapter 1137, the interim rules for hemp processing and hemp products. This was the first iteration of the hemp rules, interim hemp rules, and it was introduced during the middle of COVID. So it was put together very quickly to get something out there, and it was a difficult act to do. In 2022, we updated the rules. We updated them to better address the testing and labeling requirements. We did a little too good of a job because in April of 2022, we had to update the rules again just to remove some of the cannabinoid testing that we had requested due to the laboratory ability or inability to test for these products. And then in 2022, in June, Governor enacted Act 137, which extended the sunset date of Act 14 from 2022 to 2025. That was the only change for that timeline. And then 2023, Act 263 was enacted without the governor's signature and expended the repeal date and interim rulemaking until July of 2027. And in May of 2024, as part of Act 263, the Department of Health and Department of Agriculture jointly convened the first Hawaii Hemp Task Force, and which is what we're here today. So there has not actually been a lot of rule changes and adaptations since 2020 when Act 14 and the creation of Chapter 328G rules were initiated. So I just want to point that out to everyone. Next up, Stephen, we're going to have Greg Edwards from my team. He's going to review the processing operations required to require a permit and compliance with interim rules, and he'll walk you through that.
Hello, everyone. My name is Greg Edwards, and as Leon mentioned, I'm a surveyor here with the Department of Health, Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation. There's a flow chart that we created with some sample images to describe the current law and who would be required to get a permit from the Department of Health, the hemp processor's permit. So I do want to say that that there's some items on here, particularly pathways B and C. You can see the two middle rectangles, columns, that involve the use of crude extract. Crude is allowed by law, but the law requires interim rules to be updated to clarify under what labeling conditions and testing requirements the crude can be, made. But I've included them here to show you what the law currently allows. But again, we're still in this intermediary stage where we need to update the interim rules for lanes B and C that you see on the screen. I also wanted to just note out, I'm using some acronyms here, to just simplify because there's a lot of information on this sheet. So crude extract in this bottom left-hand black box here on the screen is the initial cannabinoid containing extraction from hemp biomass. It's not fit for use or consumption. Further processing is required to create a cannabinoid containing manufactured hemp product. So MHP here is a manufactured hemp product, and that's a cannabinoid containing product applied topically to the skin or taken orally in a form allowed in rules. The third definition here that we talked about is hemp biomass. In 328G, the law, hemp biomass means the floral and leaf part of the plant. So lane A is basically the way it was before Act 263 opened it up a little bit more. So anyone processing hemp biomass, flower and leaf, we need to register at that time with the department to make a compliant manufactured hemp product. And I put, again, an example would be like a tincture, or below that is an example of a topical finished hemp product for the consumer. Lane B, which is new under Act 263, is anyone processing hemp biomass into a compliant crude extract. And as you see there, the extract shall only be sold to another permitted hemp processor or to a equivalent authority regulated agency in another jurisdiction. So you can sell your crude out of state if that state allows that crude to come in. And again, the picture down below would be an example of just visual example of crude. Lane C, this would be if all you want to do is just start with the crude. So anyone that wants to complete the process of producing compliant manufactured hemp products from crude, you would need to get a permit from a Department of Health. And again, so that would be starting with the crude and finishing with something like a tincture or a topical pill, powder, etc. The last lane, lane D, is anyone that wants to start with a compliant manufactured hemp product. So I have an example of, say, like CBD powder, bulk powder, that's already compliant under Hawaii's rules. If they want to start with that to make another product, another compliant manufactured hemp product. So you start with a compliant product, manufactured hemp product, and you end up with a different one. So any of these activities now require a permit from the Department of Health. You can scroll down a little bit to the bottom. Right. things. The second part of the flow chart is just information for everyone here to just some of the requirements that also changed. You do need a USDA license to grow hemp in order to apply for a permit. Act 263 expanded that to now allow anyone that consents to a background check, they would then be allowed to obtain a permit from the Department of Health. I want to just acknowledge a roadblock that we're currently experiencing with that. If you don't have a USDA permit and you're wanting to get a permit from Department of Health to process hemp, and you're going to consent to a background check, the law allows you to submit the application. However, we're waiting on FBI for access to the federal database to verify the background check information, so we can determine if you have any disqualifying conditions. So this is something that we've smoothed over on our side, the state side, but we need to wait for FBI, and we've had multiple requests for them to review our information and give us access to the federal database. So that's something that we're still waiting on. So currently, as it stands today, you do need to be a USDA licensed hemp grower in order to apply to get a DOH permit to process hemp. We hope that FBI will contact us soon and let us know we have access to the database and we can open it up to everyone else. The rest of the information in here is giving the applicant information on what kind of indoor processing facility criteria. So where they're going to actually process the hemp. The application, which my colleague will go over next, has a lot of information that we're asking for up front to ensure that the facility is going to comply with the rules. The last thing we want to note is that there are other DOH agencies down below on the bottom here. It says Environmental Management Division and Environmental Health Services Division, that you're going to want to consider reaching out to ensure that your unique processing activities that you're doing in your facility are in compliance with their regulatory oversight, whether it's hazardous waste, whether it's indoor air quality, anything that they may manage that's outside of the scope of our regulations, 328G and 1137. So again, this document is available, it's posted, and there's links embedded in here for you to reach out to us with questions at our website. And that's hopefully this summary is helpful. Next, I'd like to invite Ashley up to go over the application process.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I'm also with the Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation. I'm also a surveyor. I was involved in the creation of this current hemp processor permit application. And I want to just kind of go over just briefly about the application. And hopefully this information can help you and future hemp permittees with completing one and submitting it to us. So before we go into the actual form and application, I just wanted to go over kind of the logic and the flow of the application. With the enactment of Act 263 and changes to our law, there were changes that are required to be placed into an application. So we needed this information, statutory requirements that needed to be in the actual application. Towards the left of the flow chart lists the 5 sections of the application, and that's just kind of how we broke it down based off of the statutory requirements. Some of which are the applicant information, your contact information, the location of the property in which you will be processing, and then facility requirements and, background check requirements. When an applicant submits a hemp permit application, what you're really applying for are the processes. So you're trying to, what you're submitting is what you're requesting for based on your process and what type of process. And then also the facility in which you will be processing in. So the directly next to the hemp process options are the options in which that you can select currently for your hemp processing operations, some of which include processing crude extract, processing crude extract for the purpose of creating other manufactured hemp products, using purchased manufactured hemp products to create another manufactured hemp product. And depending on the process, there are other regulatory requirements that you need to meet. I won't really go through the entire flow, but I just, this is posted on the website with the other slides for reference, but just know that a lot of these changes were made in Act 263, and these requirements do need to be met in order for you to obtain the permit for the process that you're requesting. There. So just from top to bottom, the first page of the application includes the instructions. There's a requirement for everyone to fill out sections 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. Section 4 is dependent on the process that you are requesting. And this is just basic. Again, we broke it down by sections. So the first section being the applicant information. Section 2 being information about the operations that you're requesting, and then the processing facility information. So where you're going to include your TMK information, your address, and then the process in which you can apply for. And it can be multiple processes. The next section is just a continuation of section 2. And there are questions related to the facility in which you will process hemp. And you will need to answer these, and this will help us determine if your facility can meet the requirements depending on the operation that you're requesting. Section 3 also includes additional facility, specific facility questions. Again, these are requirements that need to be met. And that's the end of the facility questions. With every application, this section 4, won't be for everybody, but again, as I mentioned, depending on the operation that you're selecting, your building may be exempt from building codes and requirements. And if it is the case, you would have to provide evidence of either 4688 or being a food hub or agriculture park. So this section would pertain to some applicants, and you would need to provide evidence of that exception. And then lastly, section 5 is just that with every application, there needs to be a certified check for the application fee. Hopefully that helps. Thank you.
Thank you, Liam, Greg, and Ashley for the presentation. Is there a testimony from the public?
Let's see.
So if there is no public testimony, we will now proceed to the discussion by the task force members regarding the DOH presentation.
There's one hand raised. Gail wishes to speak.
Is it okay to go ahead or?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for putting that together. I'm sure it was helpful for folks. I just want to make a quick note that the presentation we are expecting and hoping today from Department of Health had to do with these draft rules. We understood there being done that are going to greatly impact our industry, which was supposed to be the function of the hemp task force, was to provide an opportunity and forum for those in the hemp industry to be able to interact with the agencies and have conversations about rules before they're let out again. So just, I guess, a note of frustration that way. But secondly, just real quick, just want to confirm, can DOH, none of what you just put up on the screen applies to imports, right? I mean, and how they were manufactured, correct? Which is most of our market. This just applies to those of us that are in state, correct?
So this is the hemp processor's permit is what we review.
Yeah.
It's not the retail sale of product, which doesn't
Yeah.
require a permit or a registration. So that's basically two aspects of 328G. It's establishing a permit process by which in-state processors can work with hemp biomass, work with crude, work with finished manufactured hemp product to make a finished manufactured hemp product. The second aspect of 328G and also the rules is then the sale of these products in state, which is outside of the discussion of the presentation that we just gave.
Sure, which I think is the point, is that we have a whole bunch of products and imports out there that are in no way compliant and would be able to be compliant with the rules that are being set up for manufacturers and processors here. But just real quick on the flow chart, I think maybe I read that wrong. I think it said that, as I understand it, no processing, heat, bulk, or compressed gases are allowed. I think it said, if it's yes, then you get to continue in the permit process, but just to be clear that those are not allowed.
Well, they're allowed if you're applying during the application process, if you're going to be using a facility that is not 4688 exempt. If you're
Gotcha.
not claiming that your building is 4688, and that's HRS, that's a reference to a section in statute. Then you don't need to limit yourself to restrict yourself to those processes. If you are using a facility that is 4688 exempt, provide the evidence of that, and then the law requires that you're limited in the types of processing, the way you can extract, from the material.
Yeah, maybe I read that first slide wrong with the flow chart. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. We'll double check and make sure the flow chart is accurate too.
Okay, next with their hand raised was Joseph Smith.
Oh, yes, thank you. Thank you for putting this together. My question is about this processing permit. I know that this task force was put together to be talking about industrial hemp, and everything seems to be about CBD. But does that processing permit apply to a decortication of hemp for hurd and fiber? Or do we?
No, great question. And I should have clarified, so often I'm much further along in the conversation and I need to back up. It's very clear in Act 263, there's an applicability section in the law, 328G, I should refer to as actually 328G, that all of the permitting side of it, from DOH's responsibility is for cannabinoid hemp products that are defined as manufactured hemp products. And those are specific forms, pills, tablets, capsules containing cannabinoids from hemp. It excludes anything related to industrial hemp or things that we would term industrial hemp products, biofuels, hempcrete, concrete, et cetera. So if your goal is to make a manufactured hemp product from hemp, you would need to get a permit from us. If that's not what you're doing, then we don't have any regulatory authority over that activity or that business.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Up next is Robert Benz.
Hello. I also agree that I think most of the hemp farmers are way past this point, and Gail brought up pretty much what I was gonna say is this is the reason why there's so few farmers doing it. We talk about industrial hemp has a definition. It's right now defined by the USDA. It covers all the uses of hemp. but nobody, it's not financially feasible at this point to grow it for 40 cents. So I agree that the DOH has been great for if I wanted to grow anything that's not CB hemp, but CB hemp is the only one that's financially feasible. And to Gail's point, it's all import that is the problem. And as you said, you don't do anything to do the import because there's nothing that the state could do to stop the import. So it would be better if the state modeled itself after states that are more permissive, and then people that grow it wouldn't have to send it to a different place to have it processed. The other thing is I like that the DOH buffer zone describes it as residences instead of dwellings. But my family has a lot of preschools, and right now, any childcare has to be 500 feet. And this is a completely legal product. So there might be preschools that would like to involve the children, and especially the safer versions of the processing, maybe not with heat or anything dangerous. But that should be looked at as more permissive if the preschool or childcare facility at least allows it. And the price just for the permit and the potential fees is another thing, because Hawaii hemp farmers are trying to compete at a direct competitive disadvantage to other states that allow over 21 IHDs and a full range of CB products. But like even for the Yuma, it always grows hot. So if I was gonna grow it for seed, it would go hot. So if I was just gonna grow it for hempcrete, it's not gonna be as profitable as if I had a profitable use of the crop, because the hempcrete market is right now made off of the byproduct. Like Manitoba has a huge grain market. So I just want to get more of a farmer's perspective, because like that industrial hemp definition is important, because under the current USDA, we're all on industrial hemp and we all use it for industrial hemp right now.
Thanks, Robert. I can address to some extent the buffer zone, what you refer to as a buffer zone. This wouldn't be again for farming, this would be for processing, where you're gonna process. And on the sheet that I had up previous, although I didn't mention it, call it out specifically. If you're working as a hemp processor, permitted hemp processor, with plant material to make your crude or to make your finished product, there is a 500-foot barrier. If you're not, if that's not your business model, if there's anyone that wants to start with just the crude, meaning purchase the crude from somebody else, compliant crude, or start with, say, CBD isolate that's compliant. And they'd still need a processing facility and they would still need a permit from us, but that 500-foot barrier does not apply to them. So there's some flexibility built into the law currently that doesn't have that 500-foot barrier, depending on, as Ashley was alluding to, what you're actually doing, what kind of processing activity you're doing, what you're starting with is really important. So I just wanted to know.
Thank you very much. Reminds me of your that's pretty much path C, where they buy a crude extract and they process it. I believe that's another thing that is gonna be bad for local farmers, because you can import crude extracts by the liter for very, very cheap from states where they have mature commodity farmers where they can pump out liters of CBD that Hawaii could never compete at that price. So you're gonna get Hawaii looking like Hawaii products. That's a good thing about our label having the percentage, but I think it should be open to if the school wanted to have a farm and they grow it and they wanted to do, say, the solventless method, which is safe, and show that the distinguishing it to they can make it without the 500-foot for the if they're already doing the with the crude extract through Pass C. I think that would also be more let I should say less local hemp that would be made through Pass C, I would imagine.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, you're correct. If it's past C or D, the 500-foot barrier wouldn't apply. Just do want to note the allowance for crude. And again, I want to point out crude extract is not a manufactured hemp product. It's not fit for consumption yet. Again, interim rules will define it all and give the specific labeling and testing for it. It will have a lower testing requirement and it will have a less restrictive labeling requirement. But the crude was an industry ask that ended up in 263. So this did come from industry that they wanted to be able to make a product from hemp that wasn't finished yet. It still needed more refining. And this was something that the department was open to, and the legislators were open to it too, and it passed. So I just want to point that out.
I agree. I'm not against the pass. I just I'm against the buffer zone and the fees. Those are pretty much my only two issues.
Understood.
Okay, thank you. Next we'll have Kyle Leon.
I just had a quick question referring to the flow chart, where it says, say if I wanted to do a process hemp from biomass only into crude oil extract, and then it goes into will processing, include heat, volatile compounds or gases under pressure. If you go to no, and say if I'm just doing a solventless extraction, kind of like how the previous speaker was saying, and would I get denied because I don't have those pressures or gases?
So let me see if I understand your question, Ashley. Sorry.
No problem.
You want to start with hemp biomass, flower, leaf, and you want to end up with crude, and you want to do this effectively, essentially solventless. Is that
correct? Yeah.
Certainly be allowed to do that. You can do it. There's nothing that's restricting you.
I'm sorry, I can't really hear you through your mic.
There's nothing that restricts you from doing that. You can use solventless in any facility. The only time you're kind of bound, if you will, to that solventless, no.
I don't think any of us can hear, sir.
I don't think yeah, I can't hear you. You sound muffled.
Yeah, IT is working on it. Is it here?
No,
Should it get disabled?
Does this help at all?
Yes.
And maybe it was a little too far away from me. I wasn't sure where the mic was picking me up, but you guys can hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thanks. So, so you're starting from hemp biomass, flower material, leaf material, you're ending up with crude. You can do that solventless, you can do that with solvents, with CO2, et cetera. Nothing, nothing denies you from that. However, you do need to be 500 feet away from the schools, residences, preschools, et cetera, that's required by law. So maybe
Greg, I
that,
think there's a typo on that flow chart, which I was kind of alluding to, because it says, will processing include heat or volatile compounds? And if it's no, you get denied.
Yeah,
So
that's kind of the reason why I'm bringing it up, because if I was to do a solventless extraction, which would be the no, then I would get denied.
Oh, that's right. Yep, you're correct. We need to update that. It would have to go further Excuse me?
That second pathway, the purple one below, is what he's talking about.
He's talking about the 500 feet.
So
Um,
what I initially want to do is I have my USDA hemp farm in Waimanalo. I'd like to grow that crop, take that flower, solventlessly extract it under a permit from the DOH. But in order for me to get that permit, I need to make sure that my current location is good and have you guys give me that permit. If I'm just doing solventless extraction, am I going to get denied?
no.
Because it shows that on this flow chart.
Yes, you're right. It needs to be updated. Only if it includes heat or volatile compounds does your facility need to comply with zoning ordinances and codes. If you're using solventless with no heat or volatile compounds or gases under pressure, you may be eligible under 4688. And that's assuming all other facility requirements are met. Does that help answer your question? And then
So I would
also 500 feet requirement.
So I would have to comply with 4688 in order to do a solventless extraction.
If your building is not,
Yeah, if
comply.
you're not using a 4688 building, if you're not relying on an exemption from
Mm-hmm.
4688 HRS, that means you are using a building that is up to code, permitted, et cetera, as the law requires, and you're not relying on this new option to consider 4688 exemption. If you're using that, you can use any processing method, including solventless. You don't have to, but you do have to be 500 feet. That facility has to be 500 feet away from those other structures.
Okay. Okay.
The 4688 and the food hub and the ag part, I kind of refer to as 4688, but there are two other facilities or locations that also qualify. That's where the solventless or the no heat, no compressed gas, no volatile, solvents. That's where that restriction comes in. If you're not relying on the use of a food hub as your facility or located in an ag park, or not relying on your structure being 46-8888, exempt, then you really only just need to be 500 feet away if you're starting with flour. You're processing, the way you want to process is not limited.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. We'll review the chart and make sure it's accurate and make any changes on our website, on the DOH website, to make sure it's accurate.
Up next is Rusty Tapp.
Hi, thanks for everyone's help. I know as striving to be a hemp farmer, I can relate to what Gail and what Robert are saying about these policies that are at disadvantaging local farmers to make products. And one of the big issues is the 500-foot buffer zone. That doesn't, I'm curious if there's a scientific basis for that. I'm curious where the number came from. And I also remember that to grow hemp, to cultivate it, it used to be a 500-foot setback from any existing dwellings or schools. And that changed recently to 100 feet, I think, in the more recent reforms. But so that difference alone, that change from 500 feet to 100 feet, what was the justification for that? Could that same justification be used to allow for the processing facilities to be 100 square feet or 100 feet from an existing dwelling? So the buffer zone does seem to raise problems because Hawaii's real estate, is limited as it is. And, we're looking for places to build. That's a big investment. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy land, build something. So it's antithetical to the progress, if that's really what we're here to make, in terms of building a local hemp industry. And I'm just curious if we can look at that. That seems like an issue that will keep coming up. Thanks.
Yeah, Rusty, absolutely. It's in the law. So industry can certainly request legislature amend that. in a bill, and that can be part of the recommendation of the report. I mean, that you can discuss that on the task force if you want that to be part of the recommendation for the legislature to consider. But that's just from the report. Separately, anyone can go through the process of submitting a bill to change anything in the law. 328G is what we're referring to. My guess is, and this is speculation, is the 500-foot barrier at the time in 2020 when it was passed was probably borrowed because 500-foot barrier for growing is what it was. And so my guess is it was the handling, the potential nuisance of processing hemp and potential smells perhaps was one of the conversations that was being had, and 500-foot was chosen because that was the barrier at the time for growing.
Okay. Yeah, it does seem like something that we could look into more because it doesn't seem to have a really solid foundation in trying to help build the industry here. And maybe we should be looking at that. Thanks. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Oh, okay. Next we'll do Jared. Yeah, Jared. Delgamoni.
Hi, guys. Actually, why don't we let Gail go first, just because this is a separate question, on a timeline question, just to finish off the permit questions. So let's let Gail go first, if that's all right. She wants to go.
Yeah, go ahead, Gail.
Oh, well, thank you. Just a comment real quick. Before the first rules were passed on processing in 2021, and just by way of history, we'd already been issued and had hemp permits, many of us for 3 years before that, and then the folks who were involved in the seed development program before then, and were processing hemp for cannabinoids on their farm with no problem up until that point. I certainly understand the need for permitting. I think the fee is high, but the bottom line is what really matters is the final product testing. So we've always agreed with that. We're very proud of the fact that we've got a strong label law and that we do test to standards that other states don't have. But it is a very farmer limited process at this point because of the rules that went in a number of years ago, and we did do things well without them. Thank you.
Thanks, Jared.
All right. Thanks, guys. Hi, Greg. Thanks for your help. Just as we have the DOH and the OMCCR here, and it seems like we're done with the permit questions. As it's a fluid situation, I was just hoping to know on what date we're going to get an update on any tentative finished cannabinoid product rules and how much we're going to be engaged in that process. I'm just conscious that as it stands, the task force is coming to an end, and I just want to make sure there's an opportunity for the task force to participate in that discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Jared, for that. So the rules are being reviewed by the administration. They have to be reviewed by the Director of the Department of Health, the Attorney General's office, and then be passed on and signed off by the governor. It's currently being evaluated by the administration. You have all had every opportunity to contact us outside this task force. This task force was not set up to discuss the interim rules, but we've been very open about talking to all of you on an individual basis or to meet with you and elected officials. And we do promote that. We do want to have the best interim rules that we can for state of Hawaii, for our farmers, for our processors. So yeah, if you have questions, issues, if you want to learn more about it, you can reach out to us outside of this venue, and we're happy to talk as much as we can. And as I said, it is being currently evaluated by the administration, so it is kind of out of our hands at this point.
I would add,
if you had to guess, are we talking about months or weeks or years, or is it like something that's really coming soon, likely, or kind of in a holding pattern?
I've been burned before with medical cannabis rules and everything, so I won't say exactly, but they're very close. We feel that we're very close to having completed interim rules. What does that mean in real life? I hope it's quickly. I hope it's soon. But again, I will not give a date because I've been burned before. So,
Jared, I just want to add, similar to Rusty's question about comment about the 500 feet, if the task force feels there's something they want to include in the report with respect to anything with respect to rules, you can certainly bring that up and have the task force, include that, vote on that, and if that's wants to be ends up in the report to the legislature, that's an opportunity the task force has. Just want to point that out also.
Okay, I believe that's everybody. We do have one member of the public. Do you have any? Just at any point, if ever you want to say something or just let us know.
Well, I'm more interested in the fiber industry, and I'm wondering if that's more streamlined. Is there a less complicated process or simply because fiber, it sounds like it is a hemp process.
That's what I realized.
Is there a streamlined fiber permit process?
Just repeat his question.
So the question from audience here was, is there a similar or is there a more streamlined process for anyone that wants to make a hemp, non-cannabinoid hemp product? Fiber, I think, was specific. And again, Office of Medical Cannabis Control and Regulation doesn't regulate those products. Anything that's non-cannabinoid related, we don't require a permit process. I think you would need to, my suggestion would be to look at what your processing activities specifically are, what byproducts are being created, what waste streams are being created, where you're doing it, and then you probably want to engage with the agencies, specifically within the Department of Health that may have regulations, existing regulations. They wouldn't be hemp specific, they would just be for any business that may be creating a waste stream that requires special handling or indoor air quality for whatever it is that you're doing that would be required for employee safety. So that would be, but it's outside of our office.
Thank you.
Thank you. If there is no more discussion in this agenda, we will now move to the next one. So the third item in the agenda for today is the presentation by Hemp Consultants on the findings and recommendations regarding the infrastructure needs of the Hawaii hemp farmers and the hemp industry, including any proposed legislation to the task force. I call upon the hemp consultants, Char O'Brien and Megan Villa, to present their findings and recommendations to the task force. Go ahead,
Good
Char.
afternoon. Thank you. Excuse me, can you hear me?
Yes.
So we thought that you would by this time have our report, but you do not. So we've had to make a short introduction to the report so that you can understand it. So in our executive summary, we were explaining why we think it's so crucial for the state of Hawaii to support the development of an integrated hemp industry for the following three reasons. One is advancing food security, and I think we all agree on that because, as we know, hemp rejuvenates the soil and sequesters carbon as well as cleaning up toxins. And it also prepares the fields for a mechanical agriculture, for a large-scale agriculture, which is missing in Hawaii and is necessary for our food security. So hemp is really critical as a rotational crop. So the second reason is because we need to produce local raw materials. We don't have forests. We really don't even have any fish anymore. We don't have much that can be considered a raw material, raw biomass. And hemp, growing in only 3 to 4 months, can produce that very quickly. And with that raw material, you can develop industries in construction, biofuels, value-added food, cannabinoids, and carbon credits. So it's important for our local economy. Third thing is promoting our local economies. Supporting locally grown raw materials can foster the development of new industries, reducing reliance on imported products. This promotes a circular economy where money generated from industrial hemp stays within Hawaii. And it's based on these three things that we've made our recommendations. So, our report includes recommendations to support existing groups within the sector and to initiate the development of hemp, hurd, and fiber production where it's currently absent. Megan will be reading the recommendations. We'll be reading the findings in each section. I will add any explanations of the recommendations that we might have in any field. The purpose of the voting is to make recommendations for the state for funding. As a representative of this new industry, I hope that you will vote for the greater good of the state, even though perhaps your individual desires weren't always met. They will be in the future. Just hang in there. We would like to read all the recommendations for a section at one time and then vote on the whole. If there is not agreement, then we can vote on each item one at a time. If we don't get done today, then we'll have to come back and do it next week. We'll do our best. So Megan's going to talk about the findings in the fiber industry, the fiber section.
Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Okay, just the current status of the fiber sector. As far as we know, there's no hemp being grown for fiber in Hawaii other than what we've seen that Scotty is growing via Ohana Nui Ventures and Friends of Waimanalo on Oahu. To develop this industry, state support's necessary. University of Hawaii's selection of the best hemp varieties and cultivation practices. We need subsidies to encourage farmers to grow hemp, development of a primary processing plant, use of hemp for biofuels, including biodiesel and RNG, and then development of hemp-based construction materials. So these were some of our major findings from the general fiber sector. The key to starting an industrial hemp industry is establishing a primary hemp processing plant known as a decorticator. The island chosen for the first processing plant must have at least 3,000 acres of land with access to water available for lease. The industrial hemp farmers have 4 primary products to sell: seeds, mature straw, green straw, and carbon credits. And the primary hemp straw processor can sell fiber, microfiber, hurd, and microhurd. The proportions of these products depend on the hemp variety and the harvest age. Ohana Hui Ventures, in partnership with Friends of Waimanalo, has a 430-acre farm in Wahiawa where they're going to be dedicating 40% of that acreage that's licensed to grow hemp. Some of their initiatives include partnerships for seed genetics, soil remediation, R&D on innovative hemp processors, and extensive education and outreach programs. So this is currently in motion, and we just want to make sure we can support this. Processing plant development. Recommend a public competition for grants, loans. These are our recommendations. So recommend a public competition for grants, loans, loan guarantees, tax incentives, and expertise to support building and operating a 1.5 ton per hour decorticator plant for processing hemp straw, because we need that in order to process it. Avoid early stage hammer mill European style equipment. When you read the report, you'll see why we say this, because there's a lot of loss of the fiber. Consider structuring the grant loan for state ownership of the potential transfer to the factory's workforce over time. So kind of like a co-op. And then consider the first plant using the hemp train with the Formation Ag Fiber Track 660 as an alternative. This is the rough cost for the hemp train. The total cost is about $6.5 million. That includes the equipment, shipping it here, the industrial setup, small equipment for the factory in the office, and indirect management costs. So that's a rough cost to get a hemp train up and going.
Megan,
Yeah.
I'll take the
Oh,
recommendation.
okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
So perfect so far, but so what we're recommending is that the state put out an RFP for people that want to run a processing plant on whichever island they can justify it's best going to first. And we're recommending that the government can then decide what percentage of that they want to fund, or perhaps all of it. But it should be through an RFP that anybody can apply for. And then our next recommendation in this section is subsidies for growing hemp. Let me back up. First of all, the reason we started with the processing plant is no farmer is going to grow hemp unless there's someplace to sell the hemp, obviously. So that's why it's a chicken and egg situation. The processing plant has to be at least in view that it's going to be grown, because then farmers can grow hemp. And if they, for example, they can sell the seed to Pacific Biodiesel, and then they can just bale the straw, keep it for a year or even 2 as that processing plant is being being developed and then sell it to them. So subsidies for growing hemp, we're recommending $300 a ton for the straw, for the hemp straw, and 40 cents a pound for the hemp seeds for at least 5 years to encourage people to get hemp going. There may be some farmers that need support for purchasing equipment to participate in that. So since hemp has to be grown in a 3-crop rotation, you can't just grow hemp on hemp on hemp. We are recommending that the state also subsidize the growing of corn and soybeans so that we have a 3-crop rotation, all of which have value and which add to food security. Because no matter how you feel about animals, they are the basis of a lot of people's nutrition. So of course, we're recommending that the state of Hawaii get supported, or the University of Hawaii. We're recommending some equipment that didn't print out so well here. A no-till grain drill, a roller crimper, a formation ag mobile decorticator for experimental purposes, and then a used hay baler, rake, and mower, all of which should come to about $70,000 with shipping. Sorry, we forgot that on there. And then the next group we think also should be given for Ohana Hui Ventures and Friends of Waimanalo, because they also are moving forward with seed research. They should get the same equipment, but in addition to that, they should also get a hempcrete mixer, which with shipping's another $10,000, make that $80,000 to them. And then seed variety research, again, it has to be an RFP with a cap that the university can apply for. So we have 6 recommendations, and we would like to vote on them as a group. If the group does not unanimously agree with all 6 of them, then we'll go back and vote individually. But can we vote, or should we have some discussion first?
Well, this is Gail, and I would just like to say thank you. I know you guys put a lot of work into this report. I think we're really challenged. I'll just speak for myself. Maybe this applies to other task force members or not. We got a 20-page summary. Maybe it was available to us last week at the earliest. I understand the report is 100 pages, so you guys have done a lot of hard work. For me, it's hard. It's really hard to vote on any of these without being able to see the full report and the full context upon which we're voting. I think this is a good start, but I personally don't feel comfortable voting on these without seeing the full report, because, before we talked about mobile processors and in multiple locations on different islands. And that may be in the whole report. So that's my thought right now. I don't think we're prepared. I think we need at least a whole nother meeting to be able to discuss the report we haven't even had a chance yet to read. And I'm sure you've done good work. Thank you.
Shar?
Well, I would like to second that motion.
Okay,
Um,
thank you, Robert. It's
because
noted.
it's Act 263 said that we as the task force were supposed to receive your full report no later than July 1st. We should have really received it at the first task force meeting, because it seemed like most of that work has already been done through your travels. But it's unacceptable to have such little farmer input. I feel like this task force, I have spoken with Megan. She said she doesn't know what June does, and she was trying to coordinate it. So I understand you guys are outside the hemp industry and it's a lot to do, but there were so many problems with this draft report that is experienced hemp farmers. It's not what Act 263 called for. And
It actually is, Rob. I just want to address that you have not seen the report, and that's been the problem, is that
That's
we
my
were
point.
hoping that you guys would
It
be able
was
to read the
supposed to be-
report and then do the findings, but it's been structured differently for reasons that are outside of our.
We were supposed to receive the report by July 1st or before that, so that we would have 2 months to make our report to the legislature.
We
So,
agree, we agree.
I think there was a failure to communicate because I love you guys. I really much appreciate all your hard work. And I think if we get the 100-page report to the task force, we can schedule meetings with that 6-day sunshine notification. And the task force members, we can dig down on them because we've wasted so much time on definitions that hemp farmers know because it's already federally defined, instead of having full meetings on the decorticator, stuff like that. I really appreciate all of Gail's hard work because she was growing legal hemp when I was 8 years old, and I've been focusing on hemp for my entire life pretty much. So all the work that her and Cab have done for the hemp industry and the great work that they are continuing to do, and I would move that we make Gail the chair of the hemp task force so that she can coordinate with DOA future meetings, because my understanding from the email from Andrew yesterday, that even though as Act 263 required us to receive the full task force report, not the 20-page summary, no later than July 1st, we still can't extend our task force beyond the 30th. So voting now doesn't allow us to even see the full report. And as a farmer, I really trust the farmers to write the final report. So I would second Gail's motion that we have more meetings, and then I would make a second motion that Gail should be, I nominate her as the chair of the task force. And I have another question for Andrew or whoever is knows the most about sunshine and the meeting requirements. I was asked by Grant Overton if we allow proxy voting. He's not able to make it to this meeting. Well,
I don't know, Jim, are you gonna respond, or do we want to just keep going through as hands raised?
Well, so I guess two motions at least are on the table. I'm not really clear what the first one is, just to not vote on recommendations now and keep going with the presentation, or?
This is Gail. I was kind of commenting on the request for a vote, but I'll put my comment in the form of a motion. I move that one, that we continue hearing from Char and Megan today about their good work, but that we also are allowed to have at least a couple more meetings and a copy of the full report, so we understand the full context and what we're actually voting on. So we can continue it today, but we need at least, I would say, at least 2 more meetings after we've received the report. And then we can vote if it comes down to voting.
I would second that motion.
Okay, so as I understand it then, the motion is to not vote on recommendations until you see the full report.
We also want more hemp task force meetings. Yes, that was part of the motion I just made, additional hemp task force meetings so that we can discuss the report.
Okay, so the motion is to not vote now on any recommendations until you see the full report and have more hemp task force meetings to discuss them.
Correct, but we'd also like to be courteous and hear about the good work that Megan and Char put together, so we can certainly listen to the rest of the report today. Yeah.
Sure. That makes sense. So I mean, I guess if Rob seconded that, you folks put that to the vote?
Yeah.
What,
We're going to
can we
vote.
hear from, Kelly King and Joseph Smith? They both have their hands raised.
We can do that after the vote, just because the motions are on the floor. So I mean, if anybody wants to talk about the motion, if it's seconded, we can talk about those motions now, then have a vote, and then move on to other comments.
I think they're wanting to talk about the motions.
That is
So
correct.
listen into it.
All right, so just taking the first motion to not have a vote on recommendations and to, until you see the full report and have further task force meetings to discuss the full report. Does anybody want to discuss that?
Yes, I would like to discuss it. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Because I had my hand raised. I can't tell who, I'm not even sure how things are working in this meeting. Anybody can make a motion and anybody can second it if we're on the task force. The other question I would have is, why was the report not put out? Did Megan and Char finish the report and you guys weren't able to put it out? What's the problem?
So the report that we are asking from the hemp consultant needs more work in order to meet the requirement of the Act 263. That is the reason why we are not circulating the report as of this time. But we gave already our recommendation, so hopefully for next meeting, they will be able to address that and we can, circulate the final report. And we can.
Can we not circulate what we have so far though? So because some of the, I feel like there's so much information in the report that supports our findings and recommendations. And without them having seen any of the report, it's hard for them to understand where we're even coming from. And if we're gonna have to make additional changes to it after they read it anyway, I just think getting it in their hands, because we have 2 weeks left until this task force is dissolved. And they haven't been able to see anything that we've written. And I've already gotten several questions from task force members based off of our findings and recommendations, where the information that would answer their questions is actually in the report. So it's kind of like the chicken before the egg type of situation where we're asking them to kind of vote on these things without having seen the substance of the report.
How long is it?
Possible for them to see what we've written, or are they?
Megan, would you be able to address our questions so that we can circulate it today for Wednesday's meeting?
So wait, I got a question. So the agencies are reviewing and commenting and the draft is being changed and then we get to review that? I don't understand why we're not all reviewing drafts at the same time, the agencies and the task force.
So, I mean, just to be clear, it's a consultant report to the task force, and then the task force makes a separate report. So I guess the wires are getting a little crossed on what the report actually is. So the consultant will finalize the report and give it to the task force, and then the task force will, review the report fully. So I think the issue kind of has been that the report hasn't been finalized yet. So we're discussing recommendations here. I mean, the information is all there. It's basically just finalizing the actual report. So, I mean, I understand everybody wants to see the report, and that is the motion that we're talking about now. So, if you guys want to vote on the motion, then we'll move forward with getting you folks the report and having you review it, and then having more task force meetings on the report.
What's the delay? Do you know?
This is Kelly King. Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Okay.
Please do.
It's hard because we're looking at the slide, so we can't really see the faces of people, but I support the motion that's on the floor, and I think everybody should see the draft report before we vote on it to send it to the agencies that are going to finalize it. But one of the things I wanted to say was, just in looking at the what I received, which was not 100 pages, I probably wouldn't have been able to get through it in a couple of days. But when I looked at the various recommendations for the various sectors, there's a lot of money that we're requesting from the state. And I don't know that if we just, in my experience in dealing with the state legislature, if we're going to get it all in 1 year. And so what I would like to see personally is a prioritization for these recommendations for funding so that the first few things can happen quickly. And in my mind, one of the really important things is to try to figure out how the different sectors in the hemp industry are going to coexist. Because I know there's a big concern out there among the CBD growers about cross-pollination. So, we have to figure out geographically where each sector can coexist and not interfere with the other. And so to me, that's a big issue. But just in my mind, prioritizing where the funding is going to go first, like maybe the first 4 or 5 items, if we have a chance of getting them funded, that they're issues that set up set us up for success, that set up the education or the items that will get us to that successful coexistence where everybody can make a living and not have to worry about the other sectors. And I do want to just give my support to everybody who said whatever we can do to make sure that this industry stays local. Because for so long, we started growing hemp a while ago for CBD, and then we just kind of gave it up because the market was so saturated, and also because the state wasn't allowing edibles. And so you could buy edibles from outside the state, but you couldn't grow hemp in the state and make edibles. And so seems to be, and I heard it in some of the testifiers, there seems to be a lack of understanding about why we're doing this. We're doing this because of our circular economy. And that means that we want the bulk of the industry profits to go to local farmers and local processors. So I would like to see, whatever we can prioritize as far as funding on that level. I think that would go a long way in getting everybody working together, because we all need to support each other in this industry. We all have different pieces of interest and different value-added products we can do with the hemp plant, but we need to make sure that we're, first of all, keeping it local, and then second of all, I think coexisting in a practical way where we can support each other and not be worried about one crop cross-pollinating with another. So that's my comments. And when I thought everything was good in there, but when I was looking through it, I thought, well, we're asking for a lot of funding. I don't know if we're going to get it all, and if we're not going to get it all in the first couple of years, let's figure out what we want first that will help us grow together.
Thanks, Kelly. I mean, that all makes sense. Right now, let's focus on the motion that's in the hand, but I would encourage everybody to just kind of like what Kelly mentioned, you comb through the 20 pages that you were given on the recommendations. If you have a priority list, or if you have amendments that you want to make, kind of look at the recommendations and see. I know you haven't seen the report itself, but start from the point of the recommendations, and then once you get the full report, kind of fill the details in. But the motion on the floor is to not make any votes on the recommendations today, wait for the report, and have further task force meetings. So if we could focus comments on that and then take a vote on that when we are ready, and then we can move on to the second motion, and then we can move on to finish up the presentation. Does anyone else have comments on motion on the floor right now, which is to not make a vote on any recommendations today and to wait for the report and have further task force meetings on that report?
This is Greg Smith. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
The question is, if we only have 2 weeks until they're going to dissolve the task force, don't we have to extend that somehow before we can even resolve this question? I mean, is the task force going to be dissolved in 2 weeks. Is that true?
Yes, sir. So August 30th is the last day for the task force. We do have to move forward with some of this stuff. So I mean, again, it's kind of important for us to start moving on this now. So if we can move forward with the vote, that'd be great. But Jared, you had your hand raised, unless Greg, did you have something else to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, can we extend the task force? Why is the deadline so?
Yeah, the deadline is actually in the Act 263, so that's something that we cannot extend. If you folks think that there is not a sufficient time to make any recommendations, then you should at least put a report together saying that and saying that we need another task force, and making that the recommendation.
Well, that sounds like catch-22.
Yeah. It happens sometimes in task forces though, so. Jared, did you want to comment?
Yeah, I mean, it's just pretty much similar to Greg's question. I mean, how many meetings were allotted for this, or are there any other limitations other than the 30th of August?
So your limitations would be basically the sunshine law and, DOA and DOH logistical limitations. So you need to have at least 6 days of notice, public notice on any agenda. So any agenda you put out needs to be for 6 days from now. And then, obviously DOA has to host this, has to have IT and everything. So you're looking at 6 days, which is a decent amount of time. If we notice something today, you're looking at next Wednesday, next Wednesday, and then depending on how fast the report can get to you folks, so that'll give you a week or so to deep dive into the 100-page report, which is pretty comprehensive. And then if you want more meetings after that, you need another 6 days. So I mean, you guys got to figure out what schedule you can be on and what schedule DOA can be on. So in the second motion that's on the table is appointing Gail as chair. If you want somebody from the task force to be a chairperson to communicate directly with DOA to kind of set that schedule up, then that could be something that's doable.
Can I amend the first motion to ask for 2 more? Because it sounds like we need to set the dates, Andrew. Could we amend the first motion to say that we want a meeting a week from today? And then as Kelly and other folks have alluded to, probably might even need another day after that. So why don't we just set next Wednesday and then 2 weeks from today so that we have the time?
Yeah, I mean, you could make a motion to do that, but to be honest, I mean, you don't need a motion to do that. And if you are appointed chair, then you guys can talk offline about that because we do only have a half hour to get through. So I mean, if you guys want to have more discussion here about substantive stuff, then that's what I would suggest is to move forward that way. But if you want to talk now about scheduling and everything, then we'll probably eat up another 15, 20 minutes doing that. But it's up to you guys. You're the task.
So the point of so I'm trying to understand, Robert's motion to appoint a chairperson was to facilitate scheduling. Is that correct? So it can, is that what's?
Yeah, that was Robert's motion to appoint you as chair to communicate directly with DOA and DOH on scheduling further meetings. Is that, but again, we're on the first motion, so.
Okay.
They are kind of the same, but.
I was just going to amend my motion to please, let's just have meetings next week and the following week and just keep it simple. Get the report next week, following week.
Yeah, I mean, you can do that too, if that's.
Okay, that's what I'd like to do. Amend my motion to get the report. I will hold off voting today, and that I'm proposing that we meet next Wednesday and then the following Wednesday as well. That's my motion. Thank you.
That is now the motion that's on the floor. If anyone wants to discuss, or does somebody second the amended motion?
Second that.
Okay, so discussion.
Yes, I have one thing to discuss about the motion. I'm still not clear. Well, when is the report going to be available to us? That would be the question. And before we answer that one, from what I understand, they didn't meet the requirements, so they have to adjust their report. That's what's going on right now. How soon can you get that to us so that we can look at it? So that if we schedule a meeting for next week and the week after, then, when can we have the report? That I think would be important to know. And can we get it to us in an email to the group so that we could be reading it way before the meeting?
So I don't know about the dates. I mean, I guess that's between the agencies and the consultants on how fast they can get the report out, but they can send it to you in an email and circulate that so you all have as much time as possible. But my understanding of the report is that it's pretty close, so we should be able to get it to you. I don't want to give you a date, but relatively quickly.
Yeah.
So I would like to say something here. So the report has been with the department for some time now, and they have little nitpicky things about it that really, as somebody pointed out, I think Megan pointed out, it should have gone out to the task force in the rough draft so they could make their input and we can make the changes that they wanted to do. In addition to the changes that the DOH and DOA had, which are fine. They should have the report as it stands right now so they can make their input.
Yeah. Okay, well, so the motion on the table, again, if we could just get through this one motion, is to get the report, have a meeting, task force meeting next Wednesday, another task force meeting the week after. Okay, and this doesn't mean those are the only task force meetings you have, but that's the motion that is on the table right now. If we could confine our discussion to that, please, and get through this. Because again, I mean, we've already eaten up 10, 15 minutes just talking about this.
Well, thank you, Andrew, but obviously this is a really probably most critical part of this meeting. So I appreciate your patience. When I made the motion, I assumed we were going to get the report today because I understood it was in a draft form from what Megan was saying. So my motion includes the assumption we would get the report today, meet next week and the following week, just to follow up on what Mr. Smith was saying. Thank you.
Well, yes. I'm going to be honest. I don't think you guys should get a draft report. I think you should have a finalized report. And so again, DOA will work with the consultants to finalize the report and then it'll be provided. So I think that is the way things will go. I don't think you'll get a draft report. So it's just how fast they can finalize a report.
So can you see how that's handcuffing us? That you're insisting that you have all your T's crossed and I's dotted, and you won't let us see it until that all takes place, and we're on such a time constraint anyhow. It seems not appropriate.
Yeah, I thought the idea was that we would get the task force would get the draft report, make recommendations for changes if we want to change anything in it. And then that report goes to the DOH. Is that correct, Char and Megan? And the DOH will finalize it.
So I mean,
we're supposed to make our own report and we're due on August 30th. So it's really messing up the task force to not have the report by the July 1st deadline of Act 263. Even if I might agree with the ag that the report doesn't meet the requirements of the RFP, we still don't have a deadline extension for our August 30th deadline. So if we're gonna schedule meetings, we're gonna have to have like day-long meetings all of next week to be able to draft a report in the sunshine, unless there's another way to comply with the sunshine requirements, like a open document.
And Robert brings up a good point. Like, we haven't even discussed drafting the report, and here we do. I mean, it's been we got a lot of work ahead. It's feels like everyone's getting crunched, and it wasn't our fault, so to speak.
All right, so if there's not any more discussion, do you guys want to have a vote on the motion, which as I understand it, again, is you get the draft report, or you get the consultant's report. We'll have another meeting next Wednesday and another meeting after that. The following week.
If we can get the draft report immediately, because it's gonna be a 100-page report.
So, I mean, yeah, DOA, do you guys want to weigh in? I don't know, Shar, where you guys are with the last minute detail stuff.
We can have it done probably by the end of today, early tomorrow morning at the latest.
Okay, so I'm just gonna say if they can get it to everybody today or tomorrow morning at the latest. And then the earliest you can even have a meeting is next Wednesday, so. I think that, that's the timeline that we're looking at. There's a raised hand on the.
Yeah, there is a raised hand from a member of the public. I don't know if now is an okay time to. It'd be a non-panel or a
public testimony.
Yeah, public testimony.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're talking about the vote here, so, do you guys want to take a vote? Does anybody else have discussion on the motion that's on the table?
Okay, let's take a vote. Gail? Yes or no?
Aye.
Robert Benz?
Aye.
Jared?
Aye.
Janine? Kelly?
Aye.
Kyle?
Aye.
Jean?
Aye.
Jediah? Brittany? Greg?
Aye.
Joseph? Rusty?
Aye, aye.
And Scotty?
Aye.
Okay, so everyone is in favor. So we'll set the meeting next week. And then we'll send you the final report once we receive it from Char and Megan. Okay, so if there is no more.
There's a second motion on the floor, I think, to make Gail the chair. Discussion, or was that seconded? I don't remember.
Second.
That's a motion, if we can get a second, and then discuss and vote on that. Does anyone second the motion to make Gail the chair?
I second it.
Okay. Have comments or just?
I guess I want to understand what the function and responsibilities of the chair would be.
Sure, my understanding.
Exactly.
Based on the motion is that Gail will coordinate with Department of Ag and DOH on setting up meetings until the 30th.
Does that allow us more flexibility somehow?
No, I mean, you still need to follow sunshine, so there's still a 6-day period, but I mean, you would have input on the timing when, and I mean, to be honest, if you guys want to coordinate more meetings, it might be helpful, this is totally up to you. You guys don't need a chairperson to keep going. It's just whether you want basically a point person to talk to DOA and DOH about logistics of meetings moving forward.
I'm like everyone on this table. I want to help, but I'm completely overbooked. But if we think it would facilitate getting things done in the next 2 weeks and it's time limited, I don't mind, but I'm not. I don't want to create work for myself or the task force if it's not necessary. But Robert, maybe you can explain more about what you meant, because I don't want to be discouraging either if you felt it would be important, because I may be missing something.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want to sign you up for a lot more work, and maybe it could be open to other volunteers, but your points and my points, we seem like pretty aligned. Everybody kind of wants more meetings, but like Andrew said, like I guess we could do it now, if that's easier, but I think because the August 30th is the deadline, if there's a 6-day notification window and we have so much work to do for the report by that August 30th deadline, I thought you would be really good at setting how many meetings, the agendas of the meetings, but I would also like volunteer, and I think there are probably other task force members that would volunteer to help. 'Cause if we're supposed to make our own task force, maybe that should our own task force report due by the 30th. It's going to be a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, it is. And so Andrew, would a task force chair be allowed to communicate directly to the task force? To
I
everyone?
used to Sunshine Law. So, and you can only talk to one person at a time, can't, trade your votes, that kind of thing. And then every communication would have to be routed basically, through the admin, through DOA and DOH.
Well, the reason why I'm asking, I was just wondering about agenda and even writing this report. I mean, it's.
So, I mean, that is the, that's the difficult thing about Sunshine. You guys need to have discussions about that kind of stuff kind of in real time in these meetings.
It's really hard because according to Act 263, at the latest, we should have got this report at July 1st. And even if it didn't meet any of the requirements, we should have all been working on that draft report and then working on the task force report because it's two different reports.
Is there any precedent, Andrew, for amending timelines? Obviously the July 1st deadline was amended somehow. Is there, because everyone, I know the task force is working with good intentions.
I'm not sure what you mean amending timelines, because at this point, the timelines that you're looking at, I mean, the only timeline you're looking at this point is August 30th as the deadline. And your sunshine requirements of 6 days before of notice. So those are your limitations.
Okay.
But what she's asking you, is there any way that we can, is there any precedent for changing that date? Is that possible?
Yeah.
For changing the August 30th date?
Yes.
No, that one is set by the legislature.
Was the July 1st date set also, or was there more flexibility somehow that date has been mentioned in several?
I mean, the July 1st date was in the Act too. I mean, the problem is the August 30th is the deadline for the task force. So by the terms of what you guys are worried about is getting a task force report done by the 30th. So you need to have all your discussions and have all of the recommendations voted on at the least by the 30th, because you cannot meet in a task force capacity after the 30th.
I think that's the point of the July 1st deadline in the statute, is that we're supposed to have at least 2 complete months instead of less than a week.
Possibly, and again, I understand the concern here. I'm just the legal guy telling you, you can't meet after the 30th.
I appreciate that. The legal guys are the best. We really, really appreciate that. Wow.
I've never heard someone say the legal guys are the best before, so I appreciate it.
Lawyers don't get enough love. It's a very important job.
Well, I just don't know how we're gonna be able to get this done. And I don't know that my role as chair, if I were to be elected chair, how that's gonna make things, how I can facilitate things moving along any faster, other than I think we all want the agenda cleared from any other presentations. We just want to be able to talk about the recommendations because we can't talk amongst ourselves outside this meeting. And let's see, how many dates can we get squished in here, which sucks because we all work, excuse my French.
Well, we can have meetings on the 21st, the 23rd, the 26th, the 28th, the 29th, and the 30th.
Yeah, like we all aren't trying to make money too. Okay.
So I guess that ultimately would be why you would want a chair, right? Like if you want more than two right now, you guys have voted on two, at least more task force meetings next Wednesday, the Wednesday after that. If you want more in order to coordinate with DOA, to get the IT together, to get the logistics together, having a point person would be helpful. Again, you don't need a chair to be that point person. You know, you could just talk, but it helps facilitate things. But I would also say that if you want more time to discuss, we should get through the consultant stuff, which we only have like 15 more minutes to do. So really, if we want to vote on this or up or down on the chair decision, and then we can move on with the consultant, at least the recommendation, so you folks can get a little bit of base understanding, and then when you get the report, you can kind of fill in the details, come up with questions, come up with amendments as you want on your own next week.
Andrew, can the chair talk to the whole group as long as the DOA and you are copied? Because what I'm trying to figure out is how are we going to get these additional meetings set, as Mr. Smith was referring.
So again, you're still a member of the task force, so sunshine law will still apply to you, but DOA, and this kind of thing, right? DOA, if they're gonna make more meetings and if they are gonna coordinate, they would have to do that, you know, through DOA anyway. So it's just up to you folks. You would not be able to speak amongst yourselves about scheduling in a group. That also would have to be done in a publicly noticed meeting.
Okay, all right. I would like to make a motion that we have meetings on the 21st, 23rd, 26th, 28th, 29th, and 30th. If we don't want to do them, we can always cancel them. I have another legal question. What is the legal reason why you just can't let us see what they have right now?
I would second Mr. Smith's motion.
I mean, as far as your legal question, I'm not sure what you mean, the legal reason that you can't see a report. It's not, the report isn't finalized. I mean, that's not a legal thing. That's just a report.
Okay, so if there's no legal purpose, why can't you just give it to us now? And we'll see the little things that have to be changed, you know, they'll all be changed later, but can't we just have the report and then all of us could start working and looking at it now, and then we can then, you know, proceed accordingly, what we come up with, what we want to discuss, have a meeting and see how much we get discussed at one meeting. Robert has seconded my motion. Why don't we just vote on that one?
So, all right, we're still on the chair motion. If you guys want to table that or vote it up or down, then we can move on to the motion to have. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch the date specifically, so can we write that down? This is.
I would say pretty much all available days from now until whatever the answer for the legal dissolution of the task force.
I just want to chime in really quick too. We all have other jobs that we do too, so I for sure can't commit to all of those dates being on the calls. I'm just saying that, you know, so I think if you guys want to talk amongst yourselves, and if sometimes I can't be there, but I don't know if I'll be able to be available like as a consultant to address, like, so I'm just saying that I want you guys to have all this time to talk. So I think I I also think something that could be done is if they get a copy of the report, they can individually email Shar and I with questions or concerns, and we can start making notes of that, because then we can have stuff in writing. Because when I have this up on the screen to present, I can't type out notes while they're speaking. So if they have a copy of the report, they've got the findings and recommendations. For example, Gail could shoot me an email with bullet points of what she thinks is missing, or, you know, maybe I wrote something that she wants me to clarify. If I can get emails from you guys after you see the report, that helps us to just start gathering that information and preparing it so that it's moving things along. Because I think if we get them the final report, they need the time to read it, we have a meeting to start discussing things, it's going to just be a lot of talking and over each other. And I also just want to make one thing very clear. This report is supposed to be focused on 5 sectors, the 5 sectors that were in the outline that was given to us. A lot of the people that are on the task force are cannabinoid farmers, and we've listened to you and heard you, but I also want you to understand that we've done a lot of research into the industrial hemp industry, which is a larger scale industry. We're talking thousands of acres, machinery, all of that kind of stuff. So that's what a big part of this report is about. And so I just want to be clear that this isn't a cannabinoid task force. This is an industrial, like an industry for cannabinoids, building everything. And so I just want everyone to be aware of that, that this report covers in great detail a lot of that stuff. And so I just, you know, I keep hearing buffer zones and all these things that are the same things being repeated, but there's a lot more to this industrial industry that's going to help our state. It's going to bring in money. It's going to provide more jobs. And we have to like get out of the mindset that this is just a cannabinoid task force, because there's a bigger picture. And Shar and I are looking at this from 1,000 feet up. This is a overarching hemp industry that we're trying to get information to the state to understand what's needed to make this happen. So sorry about the vent session, but I just want that to be clear.
Brittany Neal has been trying to get in. I guess she's on 808-557-6052. She's a member of the task force.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah.
Can I just say something? Because I have to go. But I wanted to, first of all, thank Shar and Megan for doing the draft report, and I'm looking forward to being able to see everyone's comments on it. My experience from the county level, and it's certainly not the same as the state level, is that the Sunshine Law, only 2 people could get together and discuss something relevant to what our task force job is. And if you can't have a quorum, if you have more than 2 people and you're talking about it, you have to make a public report during a meeting. So that's what we do at the council level. If 3 of us are at some kind of an educational meeting where we're learning about something that having to do with water, say, then we have to make a report and say, well, 3 of us were at this meeting and they were discussing, you know, like that cool the water issue, that venture capitalist issue. So I think the Sunshine Law is the same for boards and commissions. But the other thing about the Sunshine Law is there is an exception to the Sunshine Law for organization. So when we're elected to the state or the county council, we can meet, 5 of us can meet to organize, to decide on meeting schedules and who's going to take what position or what. So maybe check into that, because I think it might be okay for if some of the groups want to meet together and organize the schedule of meetings, for instance. If that's it. I personally would not be able to make that whole schedule every day, but I think usually if Gail's willing to, that was my big question to Gail, are you willing to step in and be chair? Because it may turn out into a bigger job than you think. But if she's willing to do that, then, what I would like to see is like authorize her to set up the meetings, because if you just choose dates and none of those dates work for the DOA or for the consultants or for most of the people here, those meetings are going to have a hard time happening. And meanwhile, you have to notice them 6 days ahead of time. So you might be noticing meetings that are then getting canceled. So that's another issue. Anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw that out there from my experience with the Sunshine Law. And it's interesting that we we do have to adhere to it, even though the state legislature has exempted themselves from it, so. Whatever they decided. The other thing I was gonna ask Gail to do, if you do become chair, is if you could clarify that the intent, to me, this is very similar to the process of our community plans on Maui, where we have a community plan advisory committee, which would be like this task force, or that takes a draft plan that the department puts together and then deliberates over it, takes testimony and makes changes on it, and then hands their report over to a different agency. And so I was looking at not having to write a report from scratch, but taking the report that Megan and Shar put together, you know, making our changes on that, and then whatever comes out of this task force, that's our report now. That's the report from the task force. And I think then that report is considered our final report, and that goes to the DOA and the DOH, but then they're going to do the absolute final report. And we can go and testify when they start doing the deliberations on our draft that we send to them. We can go and testify and make sure that they don't change what we don't want them to change, because I think that's really important too. And I've seen that happen on the county level. So that's my impression. And if you could verify that, Gail, that's the process that we're going through, then and people don't have to think about, you know, we have to make our own report from scratch, because I wasn't planning on doing that.
Yeah, it was unclear to me, and I'm really glad you brought that up, because in my mind, the last 45 minutes, I've been thinking the most we can do is a cover letter highlighting things that we think that the task force thinks is important, in addition to offering our edits to Megan and Char, and hopefully coming to some kind of consensus around major priorities like you're suggesting.
Yeah, when we make suggestions to them, and if we can do it in writing to them, I'm sure that would be a lot more helpful, and then we can actually vote on them. And then, you know, sections will come up. That, you know, that's where I was okay with a lot of the language in what I saw. I think I saw a draft outline, because it wasn't 100 pages. But what I saw also was just a lot of legislative requests for money, which I'm fine with asking, but I don't, but then you don't know what you're going to get, because if I was in the state legislature and I was being asked for $100 million for all these different things, my first question would be, well, what's your priority? If we were only going to give you 10 million, what's your priority? And so that's why I said we should be ready with a list of priorities. If you can't fund all of this, fund these 5 things first, and that will get the industry going. So that was my input. Anyway, I appreciate everybody who's on here, and I appreciate all the work the state and the consultants are doing and all the input. And I unfortunately have to go, and hopefully I'll see you next week, unless I hear that, well, I guess there's not even enough time to put together a meeting before next week, because you need the 6 days notice. So I hope to see you guys all on Wednesday, but hui ho.
Thank you, Kelly.
Follow.
I guess just real quick, this is a reminder for Brittany who came in on phone. If you want to be able to unmute yourself, it's *6.
Thank you. Thank you. This is Brittany. I had raised my hand like a long time ago, and I wasn't sure if any of my voting on the motions was received. Again, I'm not sure if I was actually successfully unmuted, but I definitely supported the motion for not voting right now without having the complete information. That was when I originally raised my hand. Obviously, a lot has unfolded since then, and I unfortunately really wasn't able to comment on it throughout. But again, I guess that just emphasizes why there's the need for many more meetings.
Okay. Still on the motion to make Gail the chair. You guys want to vote on that, or is there more discussion on making Gail the chair?
Oh, 2 things I'd say. Okay, maybe we can vote on that. It can be chair, whether it ends up being helpful or not. I think time will tell. But I think the second motion on the floor was actually regarding specific dates, so that we could actually move forward and setting those. Whether everyone can make it or not is a difference. So I'd like to also support, and I think Robert might have already seconded that other motion on the floor to start nailing dates down.
Yes, we are on the motion to make Gail the chair, and then we will get to, I believe, Joseph's motion for more meetings? You guys want to vote on making Gail the chair? Is that?
Yeah. So are all in favor? Are all in favor of Gail as a chair?
Aye.
Aye.
Is there any objection from the
Aye.
task force
Aye.
members? No objection from the task force members? Okay, Gail is now elected as the chairperson of the task force.
All right. All right, the last
All right.
motion. Joseph, was that yours?
Yes.
And what were the specific dates you were looking at?
Well, if you really want to try to nail it down, why don't we say 21st, 23rd, 26th? I mean, I gave every date possible, but obviously we can't make all those dates.
Yeah, so we already are looking at 21 and 26?
28.
21 and 28. That was already voted on. So you want to add 23 and 26 to this?
Yes.
And is there a second on that specific motion? We're going to make that motion to have more task force meetings on the 23rd and 26th of August. Is there
I
a second?
agree with that motion. Is it possible? I liked what Mr. Smith said in the beginning, like if people are not able to make it, they can't make it. But is it possible to make as many meetings as allowed by the sunshine notice now, and then people are not going to be able to make certain ones?
So, I mean,
we
the
could
only thing
limit
else
them.
about that, that's fine. You guys can make a motion on whatever you want, but we are limited by DOA's logistics, how many times they can host this, their IT support, and
Right.
what this room. And then, also you guys can have meetings if you don't have a quorum, but you can't discuss things if you don't have a quorum. You can only listen to presentations. So if you want to have in-depth substantive discussions on a report or recommendations, you need to have a quorum. So you folks should probably discuss right now whether you can meet that quorum. And again, we're already at time, so I don't think we're gonna hear from the consultants again. So I'm hoping you guys can make the 21st, Char and Megan. So
Yes, of course.
so just know that on the 21st, you are gonna hear the rest of the presentation.
I like the idea of having all those days possible, and then if they get canceled for lack of quorum, or like you said, the DOA doesn't have the facilities or the manpower on those days, because we'd have more opportunity, and then if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out.
Okay, so then let's officially make the motion that we are going to have meetings on the 21st, 23rd, 26th, 28th, 29th, and the 30th. That'll be the motion, and we'll do it accordingly, what we can make and what we can't make. But can we add to that you guys give us the report now? Or, like right away as it is, so that we can start looking at it?
I would definitely second that. I think everybody agrees we can see the draft report, even if it's not acceptable to the DOA. That would be great.
All right, we're gonna split those into two motions. Joseph, you said add the 23rd, the 26th, the 29th, and the 30th. Is that what you said?
Yes.
29
Just,
and 30.
that's just every day possible,
Is that, is this something that the rest of the task force? So that's the motion that's on the table?
Or maybe if we can extend the deadline, because we were supposed to get this report by the 1st, and that would have given us 2 complete months. Now we're having to complete 2 months of work in like a week.
It's already established. He said we can't extend the deadline because it's set by the legislature.
Right.
So if you folks, that's the motion that's on the table. If you guys want to talk about this, and just so you know, the DOA and DOH do have to, make sure that they're available. I think 21 and 28 is already on schedule, so they can do that. To be honest, Gail is already the chair. If you guys want to, DOA and DOH can communicate with her and check their schedules, unless you guys, you guys still want to talk. This is a motion that's on there, so you guys should vote on it one way or the other. But, make sure that you guys can meet at these times, and we're not just scheduling meetings that are gonna get canceled later.
I can make them all.
I'll make myself available.
Discussion, or do you want to vote?
Let's just vote.
Okay. So is there no objection on that? Are everyone in favor of the August 20?
Aye.
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 Just so we're clear, though,
Aye.
just so he can read it all, the motion is to have meetings on August 21st, 23rd, 26th, 28th, 29, and 30.
Are all members in favor of that?
Aye.
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 I,
Aye.
If there is no objection from the members, then we will try to set the meeting.
Okay. That motion passed then. What's the final motion to get the draft? So my understanding from Char and DOA is that they can iron out these final details and have you the report by the end of today, by tomorrow. Do you need a vote to confirm this?
No, the motion was to give it to us now before they have to work like crazy all night long and try to get it to us by in the morning. I make a motion that we take the report as it is now, and it'll be amended accordingly over the course of time.
I second that motion.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, Joe, the things they want us to amend are very small. We can do it very quickly. So we'll have it to them by the morning. They'll send it out tomorrow, and it won't go out till tomorrow anyway. So we'll do as much as we can, but it won't be a final report because we need your input to make it a final report. We already have some of your input that we're already going to change before we send it to them, because we've gotten some feedback from a group.
Okay, great. So we don't need a motion. We're going to get it tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. We'll send it tomorrow.
Is that good with everyone?
But
Okay.
I would like it to, I would like to put it on, though, that we tried to send you the executive summary because that kind of gave the overview of where we were coming from. And for some reason, that was not allowed to send you the executive summary. I don't understand why, but it wasn't allowed. So.
We are not holding you responsible, Megan and Shar.
Thanks. Yeah.
So the executive summary, the final report, and the findings and recommendations will be sent to all the members tomorrow. Okay? Are there any motions from the task force members? So if there is no objection, we will now adjourn the meeting.
Could I say one more thing, June? If
Okay.
everybody has a couple more minutes. So I understand that most people here are from the cannabinoid industry, and I respect that, and I want you to get everything that you need and will help you. However, it makes it very difficult because we are talking about industrial hemp here, and I know that technically you are under the industrial hemp. However, it doesn't make sense. It's really two different beasts. And so I really hope that you can find it in your hearts not to hold up the industrial hemp movement, because we are making recommendations for you to have your separate task force with everything that you need in there. And it, even though there's not that much in these recommendations for you, there will be, that one recommendation is the most important thing. And I please ask you to not hold up the movement of a larger industry in our state.
I'd like to say that federally, it's being held up there too, if you want. It's not us, because if you look at the history of hemp in Hawaii, it's us CBD farmers. We're the ones that brought the industry forward and fought for frickin' decades because we wanted fiber and food. The only thing that we've been able to make money on is CBD. We have millions invested. So that's why we're very advocate. We've been in the legislature doing it, but these guys that are coming now in with fiber, we all welcome them with open hearts. But to pit CBD farmers against and to say there's some kind of split is just, I think it's a mischaracterization of what's going on. DOH has a set, the primary thing is around processing, and DOH has explained that pretty well, that folks that want to go for food and fiber, they're not touching them. Most of our issues have to do with around processing. So I don't know how the report has been characterized, but I hope that that history is reflected in there, and there, and we, many of us actually have grown industrial strains. So there isn't a big anti, and if we get these small microprocessors that were talked about in one of the presentations, there will be a lot more of us growing for fiber as well that are also growing CBD right now. If I could get a decorticator, screener, roller, and sifter, I'd be doing bedding right now. So, but I don't have another 50 grand to throw out because I've already lost 150, 250 grand on the cannabinoid side. So that's pretty intense, but that is just a mischaracterization to say that the CBD farmers have somehow held up this industry.
Exactly. I would echo that. And I believe that this report is made by people definitely not familiar with hemp, because they spend so much time that, like us that grow hemp, we're like, what are you talking about? And this task force was supposed to focus on infrastructure, but we have
It
had
does focus on
really
infrastructure, Rob. Sorry,
we
this
have
is driving me
no meetings.
crazy. It
We should
is
have had a whole
infrastructure.
hemp task force meeting where you talked about your preferred decorticator, the horrible decorticator that you chose.
Okay, Rob, she physically went to these different
I
places.
know
And she's done
she
the research.
traveled,
You
but she
guys,
didn't.
you
She
need to
should.
read the report. Please just
You,
read the report and then you can give us feedback.
you
Please.
should have given reports about your travels and your experience and
It's
why
in the
you
report,
preferred the
Rob.
hemp
It's
train.
all in the
Because
report.
I know from a lot of hemp farmers, the hemp train is not a good
Robert,
use of our funds, and
Gail,
like it would
we
mention we have
have
limited
next
funding.
week to continue this discussion, because I think the hemp consultants also need to have the opportunity to present to you the report next week, and we will send it to you, the final report by tomorrow. So we can continue the discussion on August 21st if there is no more objection from the members.
I got one more thing I got to ask. The legal aspect of the Sunshine Law says that we could be together as long as we're just presenting things and not discussing with each other.
No, and there are exceptions to the sunshine laws. I'm not sure any of them would really apply at this juncture. I think the one that you were talking about is less than a quorum can be present at like a conference. If you all went to a hemp conference and 5 of you end up showing up there, that's not a sunshine violation. You do have to report that at the next meeting and give a discussion on what you folks looked at and what you did at the conference. And then the other one, you can make investigative committees, but we don't really have enough time to do that. They have to make reports out and then vote on things in subsequent meetings. So there's not really a lot of time for that. And then if we show up at a task force, a scheduled task force meeting, and quorum is not present, you folks can listen to any presentations that are being discussed. You cannot have any substantive discussions or votes on the things that are being presented during the meeting with no quorum. And then at the next meeting with quorum, you have to report out what the presentation was about and what discussion was had on the presentation.
Okay.
If you guys want to have, like, if your agenda item was discussion on recommendations, and it was just, you guys want to sit down and have a discussion for 3 hours about what you want the recommendations to be, what you want the report to say, but you don't have quorum, you wouldn't really be able to do anything.
And there's no way to poll the group beforehand, right? There's to make
Oh,
sure everyone's gonna be there.
Yeah, we could work something in.
Okay, all right.
Can pull everybody and see what the attendance is gonna be like, and we can take it from there.
I'm
And
overthinking.
Gail-
You're right.
Sarah-
Never mind. I'm overthinking it.
Yeah, and Gail is the chair now, I mean, we can, DOA can communicate directly with you and kind of, you know, pick your brain on that scheduling stuff.
Well,
So-
thank you, everyone. I'm sure we look forward to the report. Char and Megan, you guys have been between a rock and a hard place. And I know all of us want to acknowledge that.
Gail, next week, we will have the final report. So the hemp consultant will discuss it.
Oh, I was just thanking them. I was just thanking them.
Okay, so.
I also wanted to thank them. They're great. It's just a hard job. Hemp is very hard.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thanks, Robert.
If there is no more action to be taken by the task force members, we will now proceed to our last item in the agenda. So if there is no objection, we will now adjourn this meeting. This meeting is now adjourned. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice day. See you next Wednesday.
Thank you, June. Take care. Aloha.
Thank you.
Aloha.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank you.